of all parliamentarians. All political parties should support the integrations of the SDGs framework into all areas of their work. Parliament should enact laws that take into consideration the needs and specificities of all segments of society, especially those are in marginalized and vulnerable situations. Women, indigenous people, migrants, and minorities are some of the main groups that should be particularly taken into consideration, especially when assessing the impact of policies and legislation. Disparities and intersecting forms of discrimination could hamper equitable development outcomes and affect the speed of recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. Parliaments should make sure that legislation supports the implementation of the National Sustainable Development Strategies and the SDGs. Each parliament should devise a methodology to make laws compatible with the SDGs and to ensure that their interconnectedness is duly taken into consideration. Each goal is in fact dependent on the advancement of all other goals. For example, policies to combat poverty, poverty eradication should address all dimensions of the problems, such as existing inequalities, lack of education, poor health, water sufficiency, and etc., and many more. And not only the economic aspects, but as well as the non-economic aspects. Each parliament should find effective ways to hold government accountable for the goals to which they have subscribed to. In doing so, Parliament should define frameworks for periodical monitoring of government actions. We parliamentarians should monitor the process by which SDG programs are delivered at the local level to ensure the context specificities are considered and citizens are engaged so no one is left behind. Oversight mechanisms such as parliamentary questions, committee hearings, inquiries, and reports are important tools for assessing the concrete impact of government policies and for bringing the SDGs to the attention of the public and the media, thereby encouraging accountability at all levels. Parliaments should enhance their communication with subnational and local governments. The SDGs should be implemented starting from the grassroots level. Partnerships are essential for the SDGs. Internal and external cooperation needs to be stronger and of higher quality, including among parliaments. In addition, parliaments should engage in and advocate for strong sectoral, national, regional, and international cooperations and partnerships on the SDGs. Parliamentarians should also work across party lines to build the political will to implement the SDGs in their countries, promoting inclusive communication as well as coordination. Particular emphasis should be placed on the sharing of experiences and good practices through the IPU and other fora, and inclusive policies dialogue with the participation of the government, civil society, research institutes, and the private sector. We also stress the importance of universal health coverage as a framework to guide health emergency preparedness and response on the basis of principles of equity, financial risk protections, and quality of health services. There is a need to establish legal mandates for the provisions of universal health coverage and the protections of the right to health. Particular efforts should be devoted to identifying and targeting vulnerable, marginalized populations facing legal, social, or even financial barriers in accessing health care. We recognize that investing in universal health coverage can help address poverty inequalities, and Parliament plays an important role in enabling adequate allocations of resources to the health sector despite the budgetary constraints exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Fair and equitable distributions of COVID-19 vaccines should be a priority and is the only way to overcome the pandemic. Global cooperation and solidarity are crucial for better access to vaccinations, for low-income countries and poorer segments of the populations in those countries. The available data indicate that weather and climate-related disasters are on the increase, and coping with their rising social, environmental, and economic impacts requires a fundamental shift in risk management to achieve the SDGs. Climate action is needed now. According to scientists, immediate, rapid, and large-scale curbs in greenhouse gas emissions have the potential to slow down and reduce global warming and the effects of climate change. Parliaments are the best arbiters for national climate targets because of their constitutional role in holding the executive accountable. We, parliamentarians, can help translate international commitments under the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reductions, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development into national action. Furthermore, we can exercise our budgeting function in a manner that promotes a green recovery. Parliamentarians can also make difference in climate actions and risk management by pressuring their governments to shift from a disaster response and recovery strategy to a disaster risk reductions, the RR strategy that considers local circumstances and addresses the needs of the poorest and most vulnerable citizens, primarily women and girls. The correlations among biodiversity loss, environmental degradations, and the emergence of novel zoonotic diseases such as coronavirus is widely documented and known. Effective and long-lasting post-COVID-19 economic recovery plans need to reflect coherently the three dimensions of sustainable development, putting the most vulnerable, including women, children, persons with disabilities, and marginalized communities at the center of the recovery efforts. By enacting laws and overseeing recovery policies and strategies, parliamentarians have a fundamental role in embracing the opportunity to build back better, ensuring current economic recovery endeavors are aligned with the SDGs and adopting the principles of a green economy, such as low carbon development, resource efficiency, and social inclusion. Legislative approval of national COVID-19 economic stimulus packages offers parliamentarians an avenue for promoting a green economy and harmonizing economic and environmental policies. Economic policies and laws put into place in the post-pandemic phase will shape the resilience, sustainability, and competitiveness of national economies for the next few decades. Parliaments can make a historic impact on the transformations and development of national economies by prioritizing green infrastructure, nature-based solutions, and clean energy, by promoting circularity and the creation of green jobs, by building on opportunities provided by digital technologies, and by advancing the rule of law. As countries are in the process of adjusting the national budgets and priorities in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, if funds are redirected from longer-term development objectives to more immediate recovery, to more immediate recovery measures, it can adversely impact progress towards achieving the SDGs. Parliamentarians are pivotal in realizing the SDGs by ensuring that funding and resources are invested effectively to support sustainable development and that budgets are monitored with the SDG targets in mind. Parliamentarians should also advocate for a coherent integration of the SDGs into national budgets. Against limited resources and competing priorities, parliaments need to ensure that adequate funds are devoted to the SDGs and that domestic plans and policies account for the most vulnerable. Parliaments can gather public support for setting sustainable development as well as high national priority by using SDG indicators to inform budget debates. In order to inspire actions on the SDGs, We will bring this outcome document to the attentions of our parliamentary colleagues through all possible channels and will promote discussion around it. We also undertake to bring it to the attentions of other relevant stakeholders. We also ask the IPU to bring our conclusions and recommendations to the attentions of the global parliamentary community at the next IPU Assembly in Madrid in November 2021. We urge the IPU to continue promoting parliamentary engagement with the SDGs and to work with the United Nations and other relevant partners towards the successful implementations of the SDGs. Lastly, we also like to thank you, all the participants, for your participations and sharing your experiences on the implementations, challenges, and opportunities of SDGs. Let's hope we can move forward with confidence and hope because we work together. And we also like to thank you, IPU, for hosting this important meeting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Indeed, thank you very much, Mr. Sitoros, for that, very comprehensive breakdown of what we've been covering, the things we've been talking about, our commitments going forward. We really, really appreciate the time you've taken into coming up with these outcome documents. And I've seen Alexandra has put on chat the link that you can use to access the outcome document, which will be put up on the IPU website. So it will be published on the IPU website. So feel free to mark that link and go there to get the outcome document. We are coming to the very end of this program and of this session, and most important of the 3 days that we've had discussing issues around SDGs and how to navigate it as parliamentarians, especially during this pandemic. And now I will invite the closing speeches from our hosts. These 3 days we've been hosted by the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Indonesian House of Representatives. So I will welcome both to give their closing speeches. And first, on behalf of the Indonesian Parliament, please help me welcome on stage Mr. Rahman Gobel, Vice Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang terhormat Ketua BKSHP Bapak Dr. Fadlizon, Bapak Wakil Ketua BKSHP Bapak Dr. Sihar Sitorus, Presiden IPU Mr. Duarte Pacheco, Sekjen IPU Mr. Martin, para Ketua Parlemen, para anggota Parlemen, seluruh pembicara serta para hadirin sekalian. Bapak dan Ibu peserta First Global Parliamentary Meeting on Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals yang saya muliakan dan saya banggakan. Pada tahun 2021 ini, tepat 6 tahun ketika pada 2015 para pemimpin dari 193 negara mengesahkan dokumen Sustainable Development Goals. Dokumen ini berisi 17 tujuan dan 169 target yang harus dicapai pada 2030. Rentang 15 tahun ini merupakan tenggat yang sama ketika pada tahun 2000 masyarakat dunia di bawah naungan Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa menghasilkan dokumen Millennium Development Goals atau MDGs. Saat itu para pemimpin dunia melalui MDGs menyepakati 8 tujuan dan 50 target yang harus dicapai pada 2015. Sehingga SDGs merupakan kelanjutan dari MDGs. Semua itu merupakan bentuk kesadaran masyarakat dunia tentang kenyataan bahwa problem di suatu wilayah merupakan tanggung jawab seluruh dunia. Hal ini menunjukkan bahwa umat manusia saling terkoneksi. Apa yang diperbuat di suatu wilayah memiliki dampak di wilayah lain. Apa yang dilakukan satu individu akan berdampak terhadap individu lain. Padahal masing-masing terpisah oleh jarak ribuan kilometer dan budaya yang berbeda. Kemajuan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi telah menyatukan umat manusia di seluruh dunia secara tidak terbayangkan tingkat akseleratif dan kekuatan keterkaitannya. Karena itu, kemiskinan, kesetaraan gender, kematian ibu dan anak, wabah penyakit menular, kesenjangan, ketertinggalan, dan kerusakan lingkungan merupakan tanggung jawab seluruh umat manusia. Hal itu tidak bisa dibebankan pada satu etnik saja, pada satu bangsa saja. Melalui MDGs, masyarakat dunia bisa merumuskan masalah, tujuan, dan targetnya secara terukur dan jelas. Karena itu, dalam waktu 15 tahun, kualitas hidup umat manusia dan lingkungan hidup mengalami perbaikan dan peningkatan. Memang tidak semua bangsa dan negara bisa mencapai target yang diharapkan. Namun harus diakui telah terjadi peningkatan. Untuk memperbaiki dan mengejar apa yang belum tercapai, maka melalui SDGs tujuan-tujuan dan target-targetnya disusun secara lebih tajam serta lebih komprehensif. Unsur-unsur kuantitatif dan kualitatif diperbaiki. Pendekatannya pun lebih partisipatif dan inklusif dengan melibatkan semua pemangku kepentingan. Aktornya tidak hanya pemerintah dan birokrasi, tapi juga akademisi, LSM, sektor bisnis, dan lain-lain. Forum pertemuan Parlemen Global ini juga bagian dari upaya inklusivitas dan partisipatif tersebut. Parlemen adalah lembaga yang sama pentingnya dengan pemerintah, karena parlemen merupakan ekstraksi dari berbagai kepentingan politik dan agregasi beragam aspirasi masyarakat. Di zaman modern ini tidak ada pemerintahan tanpa ada parlemen. Bapak dan Ibu yang mulia, di tengah upaya masyarakat seluruh dunia memerangi kemiskinan, menghilangkan kesenjangan, memperbaiki lingkungan hidup, membasmi kelaparan, meningkatkan kualitas dan tingkat pendidikan dan kesehatan, memperbaiki akses terhadap air bersih dan energi, menciptakan pekerjaan yang layak dan pertumbuhan ekonomi, dan lain-lain tujuan SDGs. Pada 2020 yang lalu hingga kini dunia dilanda pandemi COVID-19. Inilah pandemi terhebat yang pernah dihadapi umat manusia. Hal itu menciptakan penderitaan hebat dan kematian yang tinggi serta menghambat pencapaian semua tujuan-tujuan yang telah disusun. Pada sisi lain, kita juga menyaksikan meningkatnya eskalasi persaingan antar negara-negara kuat. Selain itu, perperangan, terorisme, dan berbagai tindak kekerasan lainnya masih menghinggapi kehidupan umat manusia. Pandemi COVID-19 ini makin menyadarkan kita bahwa keseimbangan ekologis harus makin dijaga. Munculnya virus corona ini merupakan bentuk evolusi makhluk hidup untuk beradaptasi dengan lingkungan yang baru. Pandemi COVID-19 juga makin menyadarkan bahwa kita sebagai manusia untuk mempererat kerjasama dan saling tolong-menolong. Akses terhadap vaksin dan obat-obatan perlu kesetaraan. Ilmu kedokteran, farmasi, dan mikrobiologi harus dibagikan bersama. Jangan dimonopoli oleh negara-negara tertentu saja. Jangan dikangkangi sendiri. Ini soal kemanusiaan. Kita tentu tidak ingin orang tua kita, anak kita, saudara kita, pasangan hidup kita, sahabat kita tidak tertolong hanya karena kesulitan akses terhadap vaksin, obat-obatan, dan alat bantu kesehatan lainnya. Namun, dari kasus pandemi COVID-19 ini, warga dunia patut bersyukur dan berbangga. Kemajuan dan kemampuan ilmu dan teknologi di bidang kesehatan telah berkembang dengan demikian pesat. Dalam waktu cepat, dunia sudah bisa menghasilkan vaksin dalam waktu kurang dari 1 tahun. Capaian ini belum pernah terjadi sebelumnya. Pandemi ini juga telah menunjukkan keluhuran budi umat manusia di seluruh dunia untuk dengan cepat saling menolong dan saling membantu. Bapak Ibu yang mulia, hambatan lain terhadap pencapaian tujuan dan target SDGs yang berasal dari persaingan politik dan lain-lain seperti yang tadi saya sebutkan, lebih karena egoisme dan kerakusan belaka. Inilah penyakit manusia sejak zaman purba. Melalui forum ini, saya menghimbau agar para pemimpin dunia mengerem naluri purbanya. Sekarang adalah saatnya kita bergandeng tangan, bekerja sama, berbagi, dan saling menolong. Saya yakin pertemuan selama 3 hari ini banyak hal positif yang telah disepakati dan diputuskan serta terbangunnya saling pemahaman bersama demi tercapainya tujuan dan target SDGs. Untuk itu, izinkan saya dalam pertemuan ini saya nyatakan secara resmi ditutup. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very, very much, Vice Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Rahmat Gobel, for your remarks. And now for the very final remarks for the day, again, allow me to present and welcome Mr. Martin Chungong, Secretary General of the IPU. Mr. Chungong, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Oh. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mercy. Honorable Vice Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Rahmat Gobel, distinguished members of the Indonesian House of Representatives, Fadil Zon and Sihar Sitorius, honorable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, we have come to the end of the first global parliamentary meeting on achieving the SDGs. This conference was an important message that parliaments and parliamentarians worldwide are putting the SDGs and people at the center of their action. This is the only way to ensure that we are not improving well-being and prosperity for a privileged few, but for each and everyone. That we are not just pursuing economic growth, but that we are finding ways to achieve green economies. That we are not taking short-term measures to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, but that we are thinking of future generations and the future of our planet. I have been very heartened by the report that has just been tabled before this conference by Honorable Sihar Sitorius, which is very clear about the message that you as parliamentarians are conveying to the global community. We have heard it loud and clear. This generation of policymakers has the great responsibility of putting us on the right track for equity, inclusion, and sustainability. This is why our work continues to be relevant and topical, and you can be sure that the IPU will continue to be at your side to facilitate learning among parliaments and parliamentarians, and to provide tools and guidance to make the SDGs part and parcel of your work. We have taken good note of the emphasis that was laid today, including from the Burundian MP, on the need for capacity building in addressing the SDGs. Allow me to warmly thank all those who have made this meeting possible. Our partners from the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia and the technical team for their precious collaboration. I would like to also thank panelists and partners who have provided such insightful presentations. Of course, I would like to pay resounding tribute to our fantastic moderator, Mercy Juma. It has been very refreshing to see how you have navigated through the discussions over the past 3 days. We have the interpreters who have helped us break the language barrier to allow us to understand one another. So I would like to thank them most sincerely. Of course, I want to thank each and every one of you, all the participants who have participated actively and have been gracious enough to share your very rich experiences. Thank you to all of you. I have taken note of the request for the IPU to continue to support parliaments. I have taken note of the request that the conclusions of your conference be brought to the attention of the governing bodies of the IPU. I will be doing that during the upcoming assembly in Madrid in November, December this year. But also we will be anxious to disseminate your conclusions. As your moderator was saying, we will place this on our website for accessibility to all, including those who did not attend this meeting. My hope is that you are leaving this conference with a toolbox in which you have put interesting initiatives taken by your fellow parliamentarians, useful policy advice from experts, concrete actions that you can take in your countries, and a lot of perseverance and political will, and I would add commitment. I hope that in the next weeks and months, you will open this toolbox and make use of what you have taken away from this conference. And if something is missing, you know where to find us. With that, I want to join the Honorable Vice Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia in officially closing this first global conference, Global Parliamentary Conference on the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chongung. So refreshing to hear from you. So refreshing to hear from you, our host. And this conference is closed, but before everyone exits the Zoom platform, I have one question for you, dear parliamentarians. Again, you're doing this on Mentimeter. What did you like most about this event? What did you like most about the 3 days that we have been here, that we have been discussing issues around SDGs and how to empower you parliamentarians to go forth and deliver for your people, knowing that you have to put the 2030 agenda at the forefront of every decision we make? What did you like most about this event? Let's go to menti.com, use the code on your screen. Let us know what you like the most about this event. Already the answers are coming in. Exchange among countries. Indeed, we came here to learn, to adopt best practices. We came here to learn, relearn, and unlearn, and look at things. Oh, okay, there's sincerity, the political will of all parliamentarians, very important. The presentations, very important. Thank you very much. Chance for experience sharing and learning. And that is all that we came to do these past 3 days. So thank you very much again for all your time, for all the comments. Oh, thank you. Excellent moderation by Mercy. Thank you very much for your comments. For the peer learning, we welcome you and we really appreciate you being here. Now, again, thank you for joining us the last 3 days. We have discussed the impact that the pandemic has had on the progress towards achieving SDGs and how the SDGs provide an internationally agreed roadmap for recovery and what needs to happen next. Now, it is entirely up to you, parliamentarians, because we have learned that you are the bridge between the people and the government. It is up to you to approve inclusive budgets, gender-sensitive budgets, to push for the implementation of climate and environmental friendly policies. You know, we have been given the platforms, we have been given the tools, and like Mr. Chungung says, a toolbox. Now it is up to you to open this toolbox and to translate global agreements into national solutions unique for your people. I hope that the discussions we have had these last 3 days have been instrumental and will be instrumental in how we recover from COVID-19 and are an opportunity for us to redesign a more sustainable and resilient world in better harmony. So thank you so much, our hosts. Thank you so much, members of parliament, for creating time to be here today. From me, Mercy Juma in Nairobi, it has been a pleasure being your moderator, and I hope our paths cross again soon. Bye.
Recording stopped.